I never imagined a simple dance would lead to a heartbreaking twist in my life. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The school gym was transformed, lights flickering, the smell of sweat mixed with sweet pastries lingering in the air. I stood there, heart racing, surrounded by laughter and swirling colors, but inside, I felt something heavy. This was supposed to be a night of magic, of endless possibilities. Jasmine and I had spent weeks planning our outfits, a sparkly blue dress for her, a crisp white shirt for me. We were excited, hopeful. I could hear the music pulsating through the walls, echoing in my chest like a warning drum. A part of me dared to wish that this night would be the turning point, the moment everything changed. But then I saw him. Tyler. My best friend, yet somehow a stranger in that moment. He walked in, confidence radiating off him like heat. I felt jealousy twist in my gut, the kind that surprises you. He was everything. Charming, smooth, with an effortless smile that could break hearts. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into the flesh of my palms. The laughter surrounding me faded into a low hum as I watched him float across the floor, effortlessly drawing everyone in, including Jasmine. Their eyes met, and my stomach dropped. I could have sworn I heard the world slow down. Behind her smile, I saw something flicker interest. Excitement? Or was it something darker? The crowd around them faded, and all I could hear was the deep thump of my heart, echoing louder each time they laughed together. A knot tightened in my throat, I barely believed in the friendship we shared anymore. The dance floor beckoned. As couples swirled like leaves in the wind, I tried to muster the courage to step forward. My heartbeat thundered against my ribs. I could lose her tonight. The thought sent a cold rush through me. With every step, I felt the room's energy shift. The shadows grew darker. I swallowed hard, my teeth clenching. Would I risk it all? For a moment, I felt invincible, ready to fight for her. But I hesitated. Instead of a leap, I took a step back, watching silently. My eyes darted around the room, catching whispers, glances, as Jasmine and Tyler moved closer, weaving in and out of the crowd, capturing everyone's attention except mine. Then it happened. In a moment of clarity, as Jasmine laughed and twirled in the lights, I saw Tyler lean in. The world around me froze as he whispered something in her ear, making her smile widen. I felt the floor beneath me tilt. The room spun, and panic surged through my veins. I wanted to scream, to pull her back from the edge, but my lips were sealed. And then she looked at me. The flash of recognition, a fleeting glance that felt heavy with meaning, fearful uncertainty hung thick in the air. She turned away from me once more, drawn back to him. My pulse roared in my ears like a tsunami crashing over a fragile shore. What was happening? Was I losing her? Panic suffocated me, a pressure that turned my vision blurry. I wanted to run. I wanted to vanish. Just then, the music stopped. Silence cascaded over us. Eyes turned. All of them were watching, waiting. My breath caught in my throat. Then Tyler stepped back and whispered something to Jasmine. She gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Her eyes widened in shock. I felt that familiar knot in my stomach, tightening harder, a scream trapped inside me. What could he have possibly said to elicit that reaction? The world tightened around me. Was it too late? Did I miss my chance? The thrill of a simple dance had spiraled into something bigger, darker than I could have imagined. And as the silence lingered, I knew in that moment that everything was about to change. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference, let's connect. The silence stretched unbearably, like a taut string ready to snap. My heart raced, thumping loudly in my ears as all eyes shifted to Jasmine. I could see the light dimming behind the sparkle in her gaze as she processed whatever words had spilled from Tyler's lips. I wanted to scream her name, to rush to her side, but my body felt rooted to the spot. Instead, I stood there, an outsider in my own skin, painfully aware of my breath hitching in my throat. With a delicate touch, Jasmine brushed her hair behind her ear, a gesture that felt somehow both intimate and heartbreaking. I wasn't just watching her, I was watching our dreams unravel. My mind raced, grasping for a thread of understanding in the chaos. What did he say? Did it make her pull away from me, or was it something darker, something that would mark the end of what we had? The school gym transformed into a suffocating box, crushing me under the weight of my feelings. A few moments passed before she spoke, her voice shaky yet clear enough to pierce through the silence. Tyler, I need to think. Her words hung between us, raw and vulnerable, as she took a step back, shaking her head. My heart ached. That moment was all it took for my world to tilt further into chaos. Tyler's expression shifted from charming to predatory. He didn't take a step back. Instead, he leaned in closer, eyes flashing with something that felt possessive. Jealousy turned to rage that coursed through me as I saw him reach for her hand. Don't let him take you from me, I whispered under my breath. It was a plea, one that hung in the air like smoke. It wasn't meant to escape my lips, but somehow it felt necessary. In that moment, I wasn't just fighting for Jasmine, I was fighting for the fragments of my own happiness that threatened to slip away. The music started again, an upbeat tune contrasting sharply with the turmoil swirling inside me. Couples resumed their dancing, their laughter ringing hollow in my ears. I felt sick. Just beyond the crowd, a group of my classmates shared knowing glances, whispering to one another, their judgments swirling like a storm. I wanted to lash out, to silence them, but I was trapped in my own fear, a spectator to my heartbreak. Then, unexpectedly, a little light flickered through the murky clouds of despair. A classmate who barely knew my name stepped up beside me. Hey, she said softly, her eyes holding a level of empathy I didn't anticipate. You okay? The sincerity in her voice caught me off guard. I turned to her, swallowed by a tidal wave of gratitude. A small acknowledgement that there was still kindness in the chaos. No, I admitted, my voice trembling. Everything's falling apart. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Why don't you go talk to her? Honestly, if you don't, you'll always wonder. Just take a breath. For a fleeting second, I felt buoyed by her words, a small push to gather my courage. But then, Jasmine's laughter rang out again, pure and bright this time in response to something Tyler said. My heart squeezed painfully. The last vestige of hope slipped through my fingers like sand. What was the use? Before I could think it through, I turned away from Mia and towards my friends, cutting through the dance floor, fueled by desperation. But just as I made my way through the throng of bodies, I was met with Tyler's gaze, and suddenly, all the strength I'd built up began to wane. The air crackled with a silent challenge that rippled between us. Then, in a move that sent shockwaves through me, Tyler pulled her close, whispering something in her ear again. Jasmine's face shifted, confusion painting across her features. One moment, her eyes sparkled with the thrill of the dance, the next, they looked distant. And without thinking, I stepped closer, heart pounding. Jasmine! I shouted, my voice cutting through the music. The energy in the room shifted, the laughter fading like a distant memory. All eyes were on us now. The dance floor fell silent, but before she could respond, before I could reach her, Tyler turned protectively towards me. What's your problem, man? I didn't flinch, I was too lost in Jasmine's gaze. I could see questions swirling behind her eyes, mingled with uncertainty. My throat tightened as I fought for words, desperate to convey what I felt, a longing to bridge the chasm that had formed between us in that moment. But my voice faltered. And just as I opened my mouth to call her name again, a sudden commotion erupted. One of the decoraciones string of hanging lights snapped under the weight of a stray soccer ball from a nearby game. The bulb shattered, sending sparkling glass raining down like falling stars. The audience gasped collectively, my heart racing at the chaos unfolding. Jasmine flinched, instinctively stepping back. In that instant, I saw fear creep into her features, and it struck me like lightning. There it was, my chance, but a darkness clouded around us as horrified onlookers ducked. The moment felt frayed and unleashed, a distortion of reality. I could lose her now, not just to Tyler but to the uncertainty, the fear of vulnerability, and in the midst of this unexpected chaos, I realized something haunting. I might not just be fighting for her attention, I was grappling with her fear of meth changes inside, the potential loss of myself within the crowd. As I took a step toward her, I saw something else in her gaze, a flicker of confusion and realization, the understanding that the dance floor was not just a place of fun, but one where truths lay beneath the surface. Then the lights swayed violently, and for a brief moment, our eyes locked. A moment of clarity amidst the chaos, a force that pulled us inexplicably closer, yet just beyond reach. I could almost hear her thoughts trailing off in the corners of her mind, but before anything could be said, the shattering reality of the moment descended upon us. In that acute stillness, a shocking revelation echoed in my mind: maybe the dance wasn't just a metaphor. Maybe it embodied everything that was to come, an unpredictable rhythm that could either weave us together or tear us apart entirely. The darkness enveloped me now, unsure where the shadows would lead. As the last shards of glass crunched underfoot and the murmurs of the crowd faded into a hushed silence, my heart hammered against my ribs with a painful ferocity. All I could focus on was Jasmine. Her features shifted from surprise to concern, mirroring the tumult within me. Then, as if caught in a moment too powerful to escape, our gaze connected, a thread woven into the heart of the chaos. Mere feet separated us, yet the emotional gulf felt insurmountable. I took a tentative step forward, my mind racing with a mixture of hope and despair. Would she leap into my arms, the weight of Tyler's affection forgotten? Or would she step further back into his orbit, opting for a comfort that felt familiar yet stifling? Jasmine, I repeated, as the world around us blurred. My voice emerged, barely above a whisper, yet it seemed to resonate with a desperation I dared not hide. At that moment, Tyler jerked my attention. He shifted closer, imposing, arms crossing defiantly. "You need to back off," he hissed, his voice low and threatening. "She doesn't want you here." A tightness coiled in my stomach, my fists clenched at my sides, but amidst that impulse to retaliate, my gaze remained fixed on Jasmine. I couldn't let him tear us apart like everyone else did, reducing our relationship to mere games and misunderstandings. "I am not trying to cause trouble," I implored, my voice breaking slightly. "I just want to talk to her." She flinched again, that same flicker of fear haunting her expression like an apparition. Her breath hitched, it was as if she faced a tempest within her. Torn between two worlds, she looked towards Tyler, and then back to me, a dance of indecision that twisted like a knife in my heart. The music started to swell again, distorting the tension, wrapping it in a temporary veil of normality. Couples resumed their dances, laughter filtering back through the panic, but the moment we found ourselves in felt anything but normal. The crowd thrummed with excitement, oblivious to the stakes that glittered like broken glass at our feet. A sudden impulse surged through me, an urge rooted deep. "How can you let him determine your worth, Jasmine?" I blurted before I could stop myself, frustration slipping through the cracks of my fear. Her eyes widened, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I might have breached the walls she'd constructed. My heart raced, elation rushing through me for the briefest second. But then, something haltingly real dawned in her expression, a flicker of recognition that made me hold my breath. Before she could respond, the spell was broken. Tyler took a menacing step closer to me, projecting an air of authority that felt foreign yet terribly familiar. "You're just jealous. You want what she has, and you'll do anything to get it." His words slithered like ice through the hot air, sharp and stinging. My hands trembled with the weight of his accusation. Jealousy. I couldn't deny the pang that stabbed at me, the sense of loss that equated to drowning. But it was more than that. It was her, the dreams that lay locked within her heart, and a looming fear that I was losing her to someone who didn't comprehend her light. "That's enough, Tyler," Jasmine spoke finally, her voice clearer now, tinged with an unexpected strength. You don't get to speak for me. Right there, a flicker of light broke through my despair. The realization that, despite the vacuum of chaos, she still had a voice, a choice. My chest tightened with hope, yet apprehension lingered. Would she choose to reach out for me or continue to dance to the rhythm he dictated? But before I could seek clarity in her gaze, the world tilted again. In a horrid turn of events, a campus police officer skidded into the gym, a frantic urgency enveloping him. Everyone, please stay calm. There's been an incident outside. His voice boomed, unyielding, overlaying the music with dread. Panic erupted among my classmates, bodies shifting like clouds before a storm, conversations swallowed by confusion. The energy vibrated through the air, infectious, but it was everything I feared. Jasmine's grip on her. Emotions tightened, her eyes darting beyond, as if the clamor had yanked her away from me once more. Jasmine, I reached out, breathless as I watched her swallow hard, fight the instinct to flee. Tyler leaned in closer, whispering what I assumed were sweet nothings calculated to trap her deeper into his grasp, then reality crashed back, an unexpected revelation wrapped in desperation. Meet me outside, I said, my throat tight as I struggled to punctuate my words with strength. I'll be waiting. I turned to leave the chaos behind me, pushing through the throng of panicked bodies, all the while hoping she'd break free from him. But as I glanced over my shoulder, Tyler's knowing smirk dismantled the hope I carried, fueling insecurities I thought I'd confronted. With every step away from her, I felt the bond slipping, fraying like an old rope untethered from a ship, and I feared where those threads would lead. My heart beat a frantic tattoo as I pushed toward the exit, anxiety gnawing within. At that moment, the knowledge settled in painfully deep: she held the power to choose him, or she could choose her truth. And as the doors burst open to the outside world, the cacophony of the gym faded, leaving me alone with my spiraling thoughts, the storm of uncertainty raging behind me. In the air thick with tension, uncertainty clung as tightly as hope, both competing for a claim on Jasmine's heart. Out there, beneath the open sky, I stood at the precipice of what could shatter everything we'd built her, maybe, just maybe, forge something stronger. The night air hit me with the chill of reality, piercing through the adrenaline that had given me warmth moments before. Panic was palpable, swirling around me like fog, thick and debilitating. I stepped outside, expecting the calm of the moonlit evening to grant me clarity, but the chaos in my heart throbbed louder than the commotion behind me. I leaned against the cold brick wall, catching my breath and listening intently for the sound of her footsteps. Minutes dragged on, each fleeting second stretching into eternity as the echoes from the gym faded, replaced by the distant sirens of emergency vehicles approaching. My hands trembled, and I shoved them deep into my pockets, desperate to quell the brewing storm of anxiety. Jasmine was still inside, confronted by a choice that felt monumentally weighty, something I couldn't fathom. Would she be drawn to me, or would the gravitational pull of familiarity anchor her in Tyler's orbit? Suddenly, the gym doors swung open, and students began spilling out into the night like flocks of startled birds. My breath hitched. I scanned the crowd, straining to catch a glimpse of her. My heart ached with the impossibility of uncertainty. I wanted her to be free, but I couldn't decipher her mind, the silhouette of Tyler still looming behind her, affecting every decision she made. As the last of her classmates exited, my chest tightened painfully. No Jasmine. She remained hidden amongst the flurry of bodies. I felt a pang of instinct compel me forward, only to halt as my resolve wavered. What if she did choose him? The thought cut deeper than any blade. I had to believe in us, in her strength. I focused on that glimmer of hope, desperately channeling my faith as the world around me spun with panic and confusion. Just as I began to turn away, feeling the weight of resignation creep in, I saw her emerge from the throng. My heart soared, a fragile flame reigniting within me. But the warmth churned into dread as I noticed her expression filled with uncertainty, her eyes darting like a fragile wounded animal trying to gauge the looming threat. She paused, catching sight of me, and in that fleeting moment, a flicker of recognition ignited her features. But Tyler surged forward, stepping between us, his frame imposing and shrouded in a toxic cloak of possessiveness. My protectiveness flared, instincts screaming for me to step forward, to anchor her in the storm. "Jasmine," I called out, injecting as much raw honesty into my voice as possible. "Please, come here." She hesitated. The flicker of fear and longing battling within her felt like a living, breathing thing. I watched helplessly, consumed by the shadows of doubt that clung to us. Just then, the strained silence was disrupted by the crackle of the police radio nearby, urgency ripping through the night. "Please. Everyone, we need to clear the area." The crowd buzzed with alarm, and people began to shuffle into chaos once again. But Jasmine remained transfixed, torn between the insecurity Tyler manufactured and the connection we had built together. "What if something happened, Tyler? What if it's serious?" Her voice cracked, revealing the fragility woven beneath her uncertainty. "Nothing's going to happen. You're safe with me," he replied, his tone dripping with false assurance. A cruel light danced in his eyes, and my stomach turned at the sight. He was wielding his control, the emotional manipulation flaring up like a twisted flame. "Don't listen to him," I shouted, the desperation clawing at my throat. "He's not what you need." The words lingered in the space between us, the energy crackling with tension. Jasmine's eyes flickered between us, and in them, I thought I saw the blossoming of determination. Yet, before I could hope further, she took a small step toward me before faltering, her foot caught between two opposing worlds that in a swirl of motion, the decision crystallized. I can't," she whispered, her voice breaking, tears shimmering in her eyes as her conflicts wrestled for victory. The sight shattered me. In that moment, the world shrunk down to just the two of us, our unexpressed feelings swirling in the abyss of everything that was left unspoken, and I felt utterly powerless. Tyler seized that moment of vulnerability, an unsettling smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "See? You know where you belong, Jasmine. Just come with me." He extended a hand, one that appeared deceptively inviting yet carried the weight of chains. As she hesitated, the indecisiveness gripped my heart tighter than ever, a vice threatening to crush the flickering hope we once shared. "Please, Jasmine," I breathed out, feeling the weight of those two syllables wrap tightly around my heart. "Don't let him box you in." But just as she seemed to find resolution in her gaze again, the lights of the emergency vehicle sliced through the tension, illuminating the scene in stark clarity. The shadows shifted, reality slamming back in like a thunderous wave. "I need you to come with me. It's not safe out here," another officer called out, his voice slicing through our fragile moment. A wave of fear appeared to ripple through Jasmine, and in one sweeping movement, she turned to Tyler, a mixture of confusion and dread washing over her features. "What do I do?" I held my breath, anticipating her answer, praying it would be the one my heart begged for. But then Tyler smirked, leaning into her ear, whispering something guileful, words that felt like poison. Her shoulders tensed as his voice dripped with honeyed seduction, a voice suffused with the allure of safety, and I felt the last vestiges of hope dwindle away. Feeling like a specter, I watched as she turned her eyes to him, the decision forming but feeling so wrong. Just then, my phone buzzed against my thigh. Glancing down, my heart plummeted at the message displayed, a photo of the chaos unfolding, a scene of flashing lights and tension. It was from Aaron, my best friend, who'd been at the periphery of the crowd. "Crazy things happening outside. Get out now. Something's wrong, Jasmine. We have to go." I shouted, trying to break through the emotional barrier that Tyler constructed around her. Her eyes bore confusion, fear oozing into what little courage she had left. In that fatal moment, she made a choice, firmly stepping into Tyler's embrace as he pulled her closer. "I just need a minute." The words hung heavy in the air between us, crushing the flickering hope like the sound of a fragile glass shattering on the floor. "Jasmine." My voice fell flat, desperation clawing deep in my throat as I watched her disappear back into the shadows of his arms. The warmth of connection turned into a hollow ache, the confusion and weight of my helplessness twisting in a cruel manner, rendering me immobile. In the frantic blur of sirens and frantic cries, I felt my heart splinter, torn between what I wanted her to choose and the painful reality I had to face. With no words left to grasp for, I stood drenched in the cold realization that what we had built was fraying in the storm's wake, and I was powerless to save it. Alone, beneath the encroaching chaos, the night loomed over me like a predator waiting to strike. And as the moment stretched, I found myself wrestling with the overwhelming dread that a simple dance had indeed led to an unbearable twist, one that might push us further apart than I ever imagined possible. The cacophony of sirens echoed like a sinister lullaby, each wail intertwining with my anxiety as I stood frozen, watching Jasmine slip from my grasp. The brief glimmer of hope I had felt moments ago extinguished under the weight of her surrender to Tyler. The world seemed to tilt, my equilibrium shattered, and the harsh reality of my situation settled heavily on my shoulders that I staggered backward, leaning against the cold brick wall for support as I felt the air compress around me, thick with despair. My heart drummed a mournful rhythm of loss. I had fought for her but now faced a desolate battlefield where my words fell flat, swallowed by Tyler's ruthless manipulation. What had started as a dance woven with promise had devolved into a heart-wrenching separation, and I stood on the sidelines like an unwanted spectator to my own life. Aiden. A voice pierced through the fog of my thoughts. It was Aaron, his face gaunt and streaked with worry as he rushed toward me, urgency propelling him. What happened? I saw Jasmine with that guy Tyler, right? It's complicated, I muttered, my voice cracking under the weight of unshed tears. The chaos around us seemed to swirl, muffling my thoughts, every heartbeat echoing Jasmine's name. You have to help her. You can't just let him take her, Aaron urged, his eyes fierce and emboldened by a sense of purpose I felt slipping away. I don't know how, I confessed, frustration boiling beneath my skin. He has a grip on her, Aaron. She's scared, and he knows it. Frustration turned to despair as I looked back toward the gathering crowd, seeking Jasmine's familiar face amidst the turmoil. But the throng had thickened, a sea of bodies obscuring her, and my heart sank deeper. While we stood there, a figure emerged from the group, the principal, Mrs. Galloway, her face twisted with concern as she scanned the area. Everyone. We need to regroup. Please find your friends and stay together. For a fleeting moment, my eyes caught Tyler's gaze fixated on Jasmine, who stood too close for comfort, one hand possessively encircling her waist. Rage ignited in me, a slow burn fueled by helplessness. This was not just a battle for her affection, it felt like a desperate fight for her very spirit. Come on, I urged Aaron, grabbing his arm. We have to keep an eye on them. We moved through the scattered students, weaving between tight cliques of confusion as I felt the distance between Jasmine and me widen, stretching into an expanse filled with desperation. As we drew closer, Tyler leaned down, his lips brushing against Jasmine's ear. I couldn't hear their words, but the possessive way he held her sent a shiver racing up my spine. I wanted to intervene, to shout and break apart their intimacy, but the fear that Jasmine may not want me to do so held me back, the hesitation curling around my heart like an unrelenting vice. Dude, it's going to get worse, Aaron gritted between his teeth. You need to put a stop to this. Make her see the truth, maybe she thinks this is the truth, I whispered back, anguish flooding my voice. What if she's happier with him? No way. You know her better than that. Just then, the sound of a male voice cut through the din. Jasmine, come on. We need to move. It was a classmate who had been watching the scene unfold, his tone tinged with concern. Jasmine's not safe here, Aaron reasoned, grasping my shoulder to steady me. She needs you to fight for her, Aiden. That I took a shaky breath, heart racing, a growing determination solidifying in me as I realized that the moment was creeping away. I had to draw her back from the darkness swallowing her, to let her know she wasn't alone. Wait here, I instructed Aaron, suddenly feeling the urgency of time pressing upon me. I'll talk to her. As I stepped toward them, the air seemed to thicken, my chest tight with uncertainty and fear. The sound of my pulse hammered in my ears as I pushed through the crowd. Jasmine. I called again, this time louder, the sound wrapping around her like a lifeline. She turned, her eyes meeting mine, and for the briefest moment, I saw a flicker of recognition. Tyler's arm jerked protectively around her, his stance asserting dominance. She doesn't want to talk to you, he snarled. Let her decide that. I shouted, fueled by the fire of my emotions. Jasmine, please. You have a choice. The chaos seemed to dissolve around us, the noise dropping to a dull roar as everyone's eyes flitted between us. For a heartbeat, it was just me standing before her, desperate hope swelling in my chest. Jasmine. I stepped forward, my heart laid bare before her. You don't have to be with him. You don't have to feel alone. Confusion battled on her face, a storm of emotions swirling. I reached out, attempting to bridge the gap between us. You're stronger than this. Remember when we danced? When we shared our dreams? That's not just gone. Her breath hitched, and I could see the internal struggle reflected in her eyes. Tyler's grip tightened, transforming from protective to suffocating, something unyielding and dark. You're just making this worse, Aiden, he warned, his voice low and menacing. But my focus was on Jasmine, the flickering embers of her hope trying to break free. You deserve to be free, Jasmine. Free to choose what brings you joy. I pleaded, but her gaze dropped, hanging on Tyler like a weight she couldn't shake off. Just then, the sound of screams erupted nearby, punctuating the suffocating moment with fresh chaos. My chest tightened again, the familiar instinct to protect taking over. What was happening? My attention frayed under the weight of unseen dangers. I flicked my gaze toward the source of the commotion just as a figure appeared, staggering out from the smoke that had begun to curl up behind the emergency vehicles. His face familiar panic struck deep within me. Aaron, stay with her. I shouted, but Aaron's presence faded from my periphery as the figure drew near, the world crashing back into focus, and my heart seized at the recognition that it was Lucas, my best friend. But his face was gaunt, eyes wide with terror, as he stumbled toward us. Aiden. We have to go. Now. He shouted, his voice cracking with urgency, and behind him, shadows loomed, stretching ominously. Jasmine turned, confusion written all over her face as panic seeped into the air like a clawing mist. I reached for her, but Tyler's hold tightened around her waist, pulling her unwillingly into his orbit. Jasmine, come. I shouted, the noise of the crowd drowning my pleas. Shadows moved in the distance, darkness rising amid the lights, casting uncertain shapes that drew closer. Jasmine. I echoed, my breath laboring as I felt my heart race with the weight of dread. The air thickened, shadows bending in ways I didn't understand. My desperation bloomed anew as I reached out toward her, praying she would realize the truth. But just before she stepped away from Tyler's grasp, he pulled her closer, each moment stretching into eternity as the shadows advanced. Her face was one of uncertainty, fear momentarily breaking through Tyler's cloud of control. A scream cut through the scene, a sharp, piercing sound that echoed against the tension thickening in my chest. I watched as she hesitated, caught in a brutal crossfire of choices, my heart pounding against the cage of uncertainty. Then, just as hope glimmered faintly within my reach, a sudden flash erupted from the chaos. My mind froze, heart lurching in terror. No, no, no. The scene around us transformed into chaos, my senses spiraling as I realized the shadows were no longer abstract, they were closing in that I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, a burning panic clawing at my throat as I shouted her name again. Jasmine. But just as her eyes met mine, a figure lunged. The night blurred with a cacophony of chaos, and before I could reach her, the world around me erupted into a frenzied storm. I was left watching, powerless, suspended between fear and the drawn-out spiral of fate, praying that this moment wouldn't turn into our final dance. The storm of chaos felt like it was closing in, an ocean of panic surging around me as Jasmine teetered on the precipice of choice. I barely registered the screams that rent the air, the guttural sounds of fear and desperation echoing against the adrenaline pounding in my ears. In that heart-stopping moment, her gaze lingered on me, a flicker of recognition, an ember of hope. But it was a frail thing, like a butterfly exposed in a tempest. Let her go, Tyler. I shouted, pressing against the tide of desperation swelling within me. You're hurting her. He only tightened his grip, eyes narrowing as if my words were arrows shot directly at his heart. Jasmine's gaze flickered between us, her internal battle a brutal storm underscored by the looming shadows that clung to the edges of the chaos. Let her choose. Don't take this from her, I implored, reaching farther, almost as if by sheer will, I could bridge the gap and pull her toward me. Tyler's smirk morphed into malice, the way he leaned in closer, his lips barely touching her ear as he whispered something. It was a murmur I couldn't decipher but felt the weight of Ida poisonous memory, a dark thread unwinding. The frantic sounds of screaming surged around us like a tide of crude panic, but the fear I felt for Jasmine eclipsed everything. I could see her lower lip tremble, uncertainty battling with the cracks forming on her face, a mask riddled with the bruises of doubt and despair. My own heart ripped further in half watching her teeter on the edge of her decision. Jasmine. I dared to take a step closer. You're stronger than this. Remember who you are. But Tyler's voice was a dark melody wrapping itself around her mind, and as much as she wrestled, he held her captive. And before I could take the final step to reach her, the air shifted, and the cacophony erupted into a crescendo as Lucas stumbled toward us. Aiden. We really need to. Lucas gasped, cut short by the screams that shattered the atmosphere. Panic surged like a tidal wave, drowning out reason as his eyes darted between the chaos and us. Is she? In that split second of distraction, when all eyes were drawn to Lucas' arrival, Tyler seized the opportunity. A dark glimmer of victory passed over his features as he pulled Jasmine even closer, positioning himself as a barrier against freedom. She gasped a sound that ricocheted through my bones, a pure plea entangled in fear. Get away from her. I shouted, lungs burning with the pressure of unsaid emotions, my palms itching to push against the encroaching shadows. I felt the weight of hopelessness clawing at my mind, the creeping realization that despite my efforts, I was losing her, and then it happened. A flash, bright and blinding, illuminating the night as something shattered in the distance. A deafening crack masked the rising swell of screams as people turned their attention away from us, fear visibly shifting the faces in the crowd. No one seemed to know where the sounds came from, but I felt the darkness retreat slightly, as if the storm of chaos briefly parted. The breath caught in my throat as I turned instinctively toward the source of the noise. And that's when I saw it. Just beyond the horizon of flashing lights and swirling shadows, figures moved with purpose, and among them, I recognized a pale silhouette. Mom. My voice broke, slipping from my lips, confounded by disbelief. She was here, navigating through the chaos as if drawn by some unyielding force toward me. In a heartbeat, I found hope blooming in my chest, too fragile to trust yet ardent in its call. Keep her safe, Aiden. No matter what happens. Lucas murmured beside me, but his own voice tinged with something unsaid. As I turned to him, something shifted again. The urgency in his eyes was laced with a depth of sadness I couldn't quite decipher. Lucas, what do you know that I don't? My voice was hoarse, burdened with unyielding worry threading through my heart. Just stay alert. He urged, pressed thick with urgency. This isn't just about Jasmine. There's more happening. Before he could finish, the shadows surged once more, turning predatory. In a swift movement, something unwound from Tyler's reach, a knife glinting ominously in his hand. On all too sudden twist of the knife in the narrative. My heart dropped, a visceral jolt of terror igniting within me. Run, Jasmine. Get away. I shouted, instinctively throwing myself toward her, but my movements felt glacial, the space between us widening as if fate took cruel delight in taunting me. Jasmine's eyes widened as the adrenaline pulsed around her, confusion morphing into sheer terror. Aiden. She cried, despair flooding her voice as if reaching for me was a lifeline slipping away, and just as my hands grazed the edges of her fingers, a violent force whipped through the air, a dark figure on the precipice of decision. Tyler's anger boiled over. I felt my blood run cold as I watched a moment stretch out endlessly, the world unfolding in heartbreaking clarity, pulses of fear assailing all logic, but just then, amid the unfolding chaos, I felt an unexpected kindness, an older student stepping forward, pulling Jasmine back from Tyler's tight grasp. This isn't right. She's not a toy for you to play with. They shouted, a flicker of rebellion ignited amidst the pandemonium. It was a moment, fleeting yet vital. Jonathan, from our history class, perhaps also unable to stand by, lent his voice as a shield, and Jasmine turned, wild with a mixture of gratitude and confusion. "Trust me," he shouted, the fight behind him palpable. My heart thudded painfully as Jasmine hesitated, pulled between safety and uncertainty. But just as the night threatened to pivot on that thin line of hope, another scream pierced the air, the sound ricocheting off the walls of despair. From the crowd, a figure fell, and as I turned instinctively, I realized the chaos had expanded, threatening to consume us all, and with it, another dark truth unraveled in ripping clarity that I felt my heart clench in despair. Whatever darkness had cast its shadow over Jasmine was now surging with greater ferocity, unlike anything I had prepared to face. And as I turned back, only to find Jasmine caught helplessly between worlds, the precipice before us grew impossibly steep. "Jasmine!" I shouted once more, the weight of the world bearing down upon me as Tyler bared his teeth, closing in like a storm. Just as the darkness threatened to swallow everything whole, I was confronted with the most unexpected revelation, a parallel moment emerging amidst the chaos. Something buried beneath memories whispered, my past was intruding into the present, strands intertwining with the truth. And in that fear-laden moment before the unending tide, I realized in dread, our dance was not merely a beginning, it was an unveiling of haunting secrets tied to a fate much larger than ourselves. I could only watch as shadows gathered, hearts breaking in real time, oppressing every ounce of hope left within. The storm was coming, and as uncertainty draped over my shoulders, I had never felt so powerless before. The cacophony of chaos swirled around me, a disorienting melange of screams and shouts that reverberated like an echo from another universe. I could feel the weight of reality pressing against me, each heartbeat thundering like a drum warning of impending disaster. Jasmine! The name slipped through my lips like a prayer, laced with desperation. I had to reach her to tear her away from Tyler's clutches, yet the shifting crowd felt like a vast ocean, each person a wave between us, obscuring my path. I fought against the tide, heart racing as I strained to see beyond the mass of bodies, but even amid the storm, moments of unexpected kindness flickered like fireflies in a summer night. A younger girl at the side of the crowd pushed through, her tiny frame battling the larger figures. "Just get to the gym," she shouted, urgency clinging to her words. "That's where they're heading. We need to warn everyone." At her words, a beacon of clarity cut through the chaos. The gym, the last refuge amidst the darkness. I could feel my bones begin to stabilize with purpose, and hopelessness receded just enough for me to catch my breath. "Lucas!" I shouted, catching sight of him a few feet away, tangled in his own struggle. "We have to get to the gym." "Meet there," he nodded, a fierce resolve glimmering in his eyes, yet Tyler's threatening presence loomed large, a tempest swirling around Jasmine and threatening to engulf us all. With every beat of my heart, dread approached as the fray shifted toward violence. Jasmine's gaze still locked onto Tyler seemed to flicker for a moment, a dull pulse of hope, a sign she was fighting against the dark threads binding her. "Aiden!" she cried again, and amidst a universe of chaos, my heart expanded. Her voice tethered me like a lifeline, and all the fear in the world melted into a fragile resolve. Just as I inched closer, the knife Tyler held cut through the air, a slice of sheer terror. The crowd gasped collectively, a wave of fear rolling like thunder, but from the corner of my eye, Jonathan was still there. Instead of backing down, he roared back with a ferocity I never knew he possessed. "You think this is the way to win her? You don't own her." He spat, bracing himself for what might surely come next. The power of those words broke something in the tempest, and for a moment, uncertainty gripped Tyler. Jasmine's eyes flickered with recognition, a shard of familiarity breaking through the pain that had encapsulated her being. "John, stay back!" she shouted, but her fear appeared to stand in juxtaposition to an ember of defiance igniting within her. "I can decide for myself." I couldn't believe what I was witnessing. Jasmine was fighting. Her spirit clawed its way back from the edge, and in that precious moment, amidst swirling dread, hope rekindled like a flame within my chest. I pressed forward, my voice a steady anchor. "You are stronger than this, Jasmine. Please remember." Suddenly the world erupted around us again, the crowd surging like a wild beast stirred into frenzy, deafening shouts drowning out any remaining reason. A dark shadow loomed just behind us, a figure running headlong into the fray, and as the chaos tightened its grip, dread zigzagged down my spine. My breath caught, realization etching itself into my heart like daggers. Another player emerged, someone whose very presence threatened to unravel everything. Get away from her, Tyler. You'll regret this. Shouted a voice, unmistakable Riley, my estranged brother, storming forward with fire in his eyes. He had emerged from the depths of my fears, carrying the weight of our fractured past like a storm about to break. I blinked against the chaos, utterly at a loss. What are you doing here? Riley's expression was fierce, but it was marred by something deeper: fear, sorrow, resolve, all commingled in a volatile blend. And yet, as much as he had angered me, he was moving toward the fray, blending with bravery. I won't let him hurt you, Jasmine, he shouted, flashing me a look that carried all the weight of an unspoken apology. In that surreal moment, something shifted, not just in the air, but deep within me too. It felt like the chains that bound me were breaking, and I understood that regardless of our past, we were suddenly connected by this shared urgency. Riley, wait. I felt the urge to break through, to keep our family fractured but still somehow tethered. But the moment hung heavy, and Tyler's grip on Jasmine tightened again, his eyes aflame with rage as he faced down this new threat, another puppy to chase. Tyler sneered, but even as the words dripped from his tongue like venom, the walls around him appeared to fade just a touch. Back off. Riley's breath echoed with stark determination. An electric tension pulsed through the standoff, poised on the edge of chaos and salvation, and for a fleeting moment, I felt the world suspend its breath. But then Tyler lunged, breaking the fragile calm, and chaos erupted once more. Jasmine screamed, the sound of pure unfiltered despair unleashed, and as her voice reached out like a spectral hand, I felt something click within me, a convergence of raw emotion, of every loss and every desire left unspoken. Riley, no. I screamed as I broke into a run toward the fray, but in that heartbeat, I realized they stood closer to the storm. The edges of Tyler's rage were razor-sharp, and then, just when it felt like fear would consume us whole, an unexpected revelation pierced through the darkness, a glimmer of hope amid the upheaval. The darkness had woven itself into our lives, yes, but perhaps it was not the end. Perhaps in that moment, with families standing together against the chaotic, pallid shadows, we could ignite a fire strong enough to push back against whatever destiny had in store. That I burst toward Jasmine, but as the chaos consumed us, a new understanding crackled in the air, the horrifying realization creeping in that this was no ordinary night of turmoil. It was a night that would weave the past and the present into an inescapable tapestry. As I dove into the fray to save Jasmine, a weight settled heavy in my chest, whispering that this was only the beginning. A splintering truth awaited to unveil itself amidst the storm. And as I reached for her, the realization took form. Firm and Shalinga danced through darkness with fateful consequences awaited just beyond our reach. The chaos surged, violent and loud, a symphony of panic and desperation. The weight of my heart slammed against my ribs as I surged forward, driven by the urgency to save Jasmine from the clutches of the tempest that was Tyler. Riley was nearby, every part of him poised to confront the danger, and yet, the sight of him only deepened the storm brewing in my own chest. Jasmine! I shouted again, my voice breaking the cacophony, reaching out toward her like a lifeline through turbulent waters. But the moment was shattered when Tyler's grip on her tightened, his face a stark mask of fury, the knife gleaming in the dim lighting. Jasmine's eyes held a tumultuous mix of fear and defiance, and in that moment, I could feel her soul struggling between submission and rebellion. Aiden. Her voice rang out, a melancholy melody that laced through the chaos, tugging insistently at my heart. Then, for the briefest moment, she was fully present, fighting against the shadows as if she could wrest control of her fate from the nightmare clinging to her. Help me! Desperation clawed inside me, a visceral instinct to protect her, and I pushed through the crowd, hands gripping shoulders, shoving against flailing bodies until I finally caught her gaze again. But Tyler laughed, a cruel, harrowing sound that sent chills scrabbling down my spine. You really think you can save her? Tyler shouted, his bravado shaking the air around us. She's mine. She chose me. Don't you dare speak for her. Jonathan broke from behind, stepping forward with anger carved into his features. The tension thickened like a taut string about to snap, and I felt as though the world could unravel in an instant. "Let her go, Tyler." Jonathan's voice boomed, commanding attention, but Tyler merely sneered, and the threat twisted further, coiling around our growing desperation. And then there was my brother. Riley took a single, unsettling step closer, his own past intertwining with the lives around us, a fracture I couldn't ignore. "You think you're the only one who can protect her?" he yelled, and despite all the anger that had simmered between us, it struck me that he believed every word he said. But when Tyler swung the knife, the world fell silent for a split second, the air electrifying, and I was certain the thread binding us together would snap in horror. Jasmine's gasp was like a bullet, ricocheting around my brain, urging me into action. Time seemed to crawl as Tyler lunged, but in an instant, Riley surged forward too, a brave disregard for his own safety. "No, Riley!" I yelled, stretching my arm in a futile attempt to pull him back. But he was a bomb, ready to detonate. That I, in the midst of that physical struggle, fear pulsated through me, a desperate prayer that echoed through my heart. "Jasmine, hold on!" Then everything distorted into a blur, sound muffled as my world spun. Tyler's knife cut through the air, ready to unleash disaster. Bam! The impact resonated through the crowd as Jonathan charged in, tackling Tyler to the ground, the two of them spiraling into a cacophony of limbs and rage. The knife clattered to the side, chaos like a tide racing to swallow them whole. And then the unexpected cameo force outside the storm. A rush of bodies surged forth, forming a human barrier that propelled me closer to Jasmine. "I've got you, I'm coming!" I shouted, desperate to shield her from the dread enveloping us, but even as I reached her, the world spiraled again. Tyler broke free from Jonathan's grasp, a snapshot of chaotic fury that brought the very air to a standstill. "You think you can just take her?" he roared as he locked eyes on me, crazed and wild as he closed the distance, his breath hissing through clenched teeth. Instinct gripped me, and I stumbled back, the primal need to shield myself and Jasmine warring against the urge to confront him. Reality flickered. This was not just a fight for her, it was a spiraling descent into everything that could very well break me. And then, the ground shook like thunder, but in the midst of the fervor, a whisper brushed against my heart, a moment of grace from a stranger. An older man, startled but resolved, stepped forward from the fringes of the crowd, raising both hands in a quiet plea. "This needs to stop. Violence won't solve anything." His words hung in the air, an unexpected kindness casting light in a darkened moment. It ignited a flicker of hope that flashed through me, urging everyone to remember that behind the darkness there lay fragility, a fragile thread of humanity lingering desperately beneath the surface. But just as I grasped that ember of hope, blood surged to my head. The energy shifted. Tyler turned to Jasmine, his rage refocused. "And you?" he hissed at her, and in that horrifying moment, I could see the switch flip in her. The fight in her rekindled, and the glimmer in her eyes transformed into something sharper, more determined. "Stop!" she screamed, trembling yet bold, her voice cutting through the storm. "I won't be part of this. I want—" Tyler hesitated, confusion flickering across his features, but the unsettling energy in the air thickened once more. And then it happened. The knife, long forgotten in the frenzy, glimmered like a sinister star on the ground, a catalyst of destruction just waiting to claim another victim. As I lunged to grab it, the confusion coiled around us, the words left unspoken heavy with meaning, spinning like blades. Consequences awaited just beyond the edge of this volatile night. In that heartbeat, the weight of everything we were seemed poised to break, shattering the delicate ambience we had thickened with what felt like hope, raw and unfiltered against the bitter night. And just as the strands of reality began to untangle, I caught a glimpse of Riley's expression, torn between loyalty and fear, caught in the storm of fate's cruel design. The moment stretched, and I was certain darkness would not let us go easily. The flickering lights cast shadows across the chaos, each flicker intensifying the surreal tableau unfolding before us. Thunder rumbled in the distance, an ominous reminder that the storm outside mirrored the tempest within. I could feel the pulse of fear and adrenaline racing through my veins, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest like a vice. "Jasmine, stay behind me!" I urged, the instinct to protect her overwhelming all else. But she would not retreat. Something inside her had ignited, a fire kindled by the injustice pressed upon her, and I marveled at the strength that radiated from her in stark contrast to Tyler's violent fury. Get away from him! She shouted, defiance etched into her features. The crowds had begun to part, a somber recognition of the tragedy unfolding, but Tyler hovered between rage and uncertainty, as if Jasmine's strength puzzled him. That I could see Riley, poised on the edge of a reckless choice, eyes darting between Tyler and myself. The tension twisted tighter around us, threatening to snap at any moment, and my heart sank as his gaze fell on the knife, glimmering like a promise of destruction, lying just out of reach. Don't do this, Riley, I managed to say, my voice thick with the weight of what had come before us. This fractured path we had walked together for so long, the pain, the missteps echoed in this agonizing moment, where a single choice could unleash a fate darker than any of us intended. But I couldn't let fear drive me. I had to reach for the hope buried beneath uncertainty. We're stronger together. My words felt like a feeble attempt against the swell of emotion, but I had to believe in a unified stand, especially for Jasmine. That a collective intake of breath passed through the crowd as they witnessed our shared turmoil. And in that fleeting silence, I spotted a familiar face. Rafa, a friend from the neighborhood, stepping forward with an air of quiet resolve. He pushed through the throng, his presence a reminder of the bonds we'd forged in laughter and late-night talks. We're not going to let this go any further, he implored, locking eyes with Jasmine. You're not alone in this. His intervention rippled through the crowd, a softening of potential solidarity in the face of chaos. Jasmine's eyes widened, hope flaring within them, as if Rafa's words had opened a door to a sanctuary in the storm. Somehow, I could feel the connection igniting between all of us, our collective spirit fighting back against despair, but Tyler scoffed, shrugging off the weighty moment. You think you can just take her? She's mine, and no one is stopping me. His voice cracked with frantic energy, a warning that sent ripples of fear down my spine. Jasmine's jaw set in determined defiance, and I felt the weight of our connection surge, her bravery infused with the clarity that we would not bow to tyranny. I choose who I want to be with. She shouted, her voice slicing through the confusion like a blade. Feral anger sparked in Tyler's eyes, but it was fleeting. His expression flickered, uncertainty creeping in, but before I could seize the advantage, another figure pushed through, a woman, older, grace spilling from her every movement. The collective breath of the crowd held tight as she approached. Stop. Her voice rang, rich and steady, unshakable in the storm. None of this is right. You know it deep down. All eyes turned to her, and for a moment, Tyler's bravado faltered, the wildness in his gaze dimming under the weight of her unwavering conviction. Listen to her. Riley's voice broke from the back, bursting forth with something I hadn't seen before. A courage born from love and anger, a willingness to fight not just for Jasmine, but for us all, but something twisted deep within me. This was more than a fight for Jasmine, it was a reckoning of ownership that Tyler believed he held, and it threatened to swallow us whole. In that instant, the air crackled with unspoken truths, unfulfilled promises lingering like ghosts just out of reach. Please, Tyler, I spoke again, desperation crawling through my voice. You can't own her. She's her own person. But the word person struck a nerve, and Tyler's face contorted in rage once more. You have no idea what's at stake. He bellowed, and with that, the storm of chaos surged again, tidal waves of raw emotion cresting behind us. As he lunged toward Jasmine, I flung myself to her side, and together we became an island amidst the turmoil, the chaos swirling around us threatening to drown everything else. Just then, the world tilted, a scream shattered the air, piercing with anguish and fear. I whipped around, heart in my throat, to see Riley having engaged Tyler, the two grappling fiercely with the knife oscillating dangerously between them. My heart pounded in my chest, a whirlpool of helplessness pooling beneath the skin. With Jasmine at my side, standing on the fluttering edge of courage and fear, I knew this was turning into something unfathomable. The stakes were rising, and with every breath, I felt the gnawing grip of impending tragedy unspooling, the clashing wills threatening to tear us asunder, and then it happened. A foot shifted among the violent throng, stepping squarely on the knife, sending it spiraling to the ground. A clatter echoed across the silence, my heart racing at the cruel irony. In that horrifying instant when all seemed imminent, I locked eyes with Jasmine, our silent connection bared wide, a promise woven into the chaos. But just before the distance shrank to embrace, the shadowy realization washed over me: here would be no easy way out. And as the storm outside raged on, shaking the very foundation of our world, I understood with a sinking heart that this night would change everything. The storm created a profound freeness in me to push back against everything I had battled through. And beneath the tempest, there lay a glimmer of hope nestled tightly among the shadows. "Riley!" I shouted, desperation pushing the words from my lips. "You don't have to do this." I could feel the tide of courage I had built from soft memories carrying me closer to Jasmine, the threads of our shared truth weaving through the chaos, yearning to unite once more. Tyler's demeanor shifted, vulnerability creeping into his expression. Fear coiled around us all, tightening as we hurtled toward an inevitable consequence. Silently, Jasmine stood by my side, determination shimmering in her gaze, our bond rekindled like an ember dancing quietly against the storm. Around us, the crowd pulsed with expectant tension, an ocean of collective breath held tight in unison. "Let her go, Tyler," I said again, more firmly this time, aware that behind the anger, I was not just pleading for Jasmine's freedom, I was fighting for his too against the torment festering deep within him. "She's not yours to control. None of us are. Control." He spat, anger flaring again. But even behind the venom, something began to fracture. My words were seeping in like cracks in a dam, and in that moment, I felt hope pulse between us, steady like the drum of a heartbeat. "You think you'll just waltz in and declare her yours?" And just as I drew closer, the storm shifted yet again. Tyler's features morphed from fury to confusion, then finally settled into something much graver. The grip on Jasmine's hand wavered, and I caught sight of her breathing in the reservoir of hope I had dangled before her. "Aiden, we can't stay here," Riley's voice broke through, breathless with urgency. "We need to break free from this chaos. If we don't now, it may be too late." It felt surreal the way everything hung suspended in that moment. The knife forgotten on the ground by Jonathan sparkled beneath the fluorescent lights, blinding the path forward as if beckoning me closer. I reached for it, trembling yet firm in my resolve, the current of desperation coursing through me, pulling me into this chaotic vortex we had spiraled into. "Get back!" Tyler shouted. He shifted his attention to me, fury once again sparking in his eyes, the knife forgotten momentarily as he perceived me as the predator. "You're trying to take everything from me." "No one is trying to take anything from you," I steadied my voice, grounding my feet among the tremors of fear. "This is bigger than you. It's about connection and kindness." Jasmine turned toward me, her eyes sparkling steadfastly. "I'm not yours to possess, Tyler. We're all complex, and I deserve a choice." Her fierce declaration rippled through the air, breaking a dam of unfiltered truth. It reverberated around us, carried by the surging tide of recognition, lifting each moment to a new height. And then it happened. A flicker of something behind Tyler's eyes shifted. For a fraction of a moment, his grip faltered, the coldness melting slightly into something raw and real. The shadows around him began to recede, and chaos morphed into recognition as Jasmine's voice resonated deeper within him than he had ever thought possible. "That we fought together against the darkness, and with a singular movement shared amongst the four of us, Jasmine, Riley, Jonathan, and May." A wave surged through the crowd, echoing our connection, lives woven together like threads of tapestry against the backdrop of a haunting night. "You don't have to live in fear, Tyler," I said, the sincerity bleeding through. "You can choose a different path. We all can." The moment hung heavy, a fragile equilibrium blossoming amid the storm, until at last, with a shuddering breath, he blinked rapidly, doubt ricocheting through him. "But, Jasmine has the right to feel safe," Riley interjected, stepping forward, his voice steady and firm, embodying the sense of family that struggled beneath the shadows of past hurt. "We're not against you. I want you to heal." The flickers of vulnerability suggested an inner battle within Tyler, the echoes of his choices rattling in the quiet spaces of heartache he had long concealed behind anger. In that breath, I wondered if perhaps he too was entangled in a dance far deeper and infinitely more complex than we realized, molded by his own pain. "Fight it, Tyler," I whispered, bridging the fractures. "You can be free." The tension around us ebbed slightly, and Jasmine stepped toward him cautiously, heart open. "I know your own heart battles with pain," she began, and the words hung between us like warm light catching hold of despair. Moments passed, and for the first time, I saw the turmoil in Tyler's eyes shift. Conflict waned as he stepped back, finally releasing Jasmine, his hand opening slowly. "Maybe," he breathed, each word trembling on the breathless air, vulnerability creeping in the cracks of his facade. With that weight lifted, a otherworldly calm spread through the crowd, igniting an unexpected warmth amidst the chaos. The energy shifted, intertwining empathy and hope through the night sky, the shadows no longer looming quite so large. And in the poignant silence that filled the air, I felt my heart soar. I turned to Jasmine. She was radiant, a brave warrior emerging from a storm, her eyes shimmering with a determination that strengthened the hope coursing between us. I reached for her. "Together?" I whispered. Her heart responded, a clarity and understanding brimming behind her gaze. "Together," she affirmed, the promise echoing between us, and it sparked a light that seeped through every corner of the chaos still around us. And then, we turned as one to face our future, knowing that while the darkness may linger, we had conquered its hold on our lives, and it no longer held dominion over us. With arms wide open and hearts aligned, we would navigate the dance of life together, where each misstep and challenge would only serve to strengthen the connection we had forged. As the storm drew back and the first lights of dawn began to break through the horizon, I knew this was only the beginning. The night would not define us. Instead, we would rise through its ashes brighter, stronger, and finally free. In that moment, as the world restructured around us, I understood finally what mattered most. Love is not merely a feeling, it's an enduring choice we make every day. And we had chosen to soar, together. "Jasmine, let's dance," I said softly, as we stepped forward hand in hand, ready to embrace a new dawn, hearts intertwined like stars lighting up the endless sky.